Hello and welcome to How to Build an Archetype, this time featuring Warrior. For those who don't know, this is a series where I analyze an archetype, what their roles are, their strengths, weaknesses, their niche, and try to build the archetype to follow their playstyle with skill inheritance and synthesis skill choices by party member combination, while upholding the theme of that archetype. I have only one rule for these types of video. Have fun building your own archetype. I never planned for this series to be the ultimate build guide for archetypes in Metaphor ReFantazio. I always prioritize the fun of building an archetype by building them within their theme while making them as strong as possible. Of course, there will be multiple build ideas that may come up from this as a result. So if you have any more build ideas and don't really mind sharing them, feel free to use the comment section to share them. So without further ado, let's start with the basic archetype of the warrior lineage, the warrior. Through Stroll's resolve and his awakening, the warrior is the second archetype that you'll unlock throughout the game. The warrior archetype will also flourish with subsequent ranks of Stroll's follower bond. Gameplay-wise, Warrior lives up to its name, with high strength and endurance stat spread and the plethora of slash damage skills. Warrior is the front line's physical damage dealer of the party. With the right party member equipping Warrior, Warrior is easily one of the best damage dealer in the game, while staying durable with their good endurance stat and their strength against fire affinity. However, this is probably obvious by now, but the warrior's weakness is that they did not have any magic skills to compensate for weakness exploit. You can inherit magic skills to warrior, but with warrior's bad magic stat, it is not ideal to do so until you gain some elemental skills that deal physical damage instead. So any magic skills are instantly out of the equation. Furthermore, with how much slash damage skills the warrior has, the warrior didn't have any options for different physical affinity damages as well, meaning there's no strike or pierce damage in their kit, it's only slash damage. So, warrior is the archetype that goes very deep into their theming of the frontline's archetype that deals great slash damage. Warrior has diagonal slash when you first learn the archetype. Further along the lines, warrior will learn hit up, slicer, critical strike, and slash boost. As mentioned before, these skills are all physical slash damage focused. Both hit up and slash boost are passive skills that amplify all the three physical slash damage skills that warrior learns. Critical strike on paper is also a great skill for manipulating turns with criticals. Although from my experience, you'd have to be really lucky and brave to even cast Critical Strike purely because of how low its hit rate is. Throughout my gameplay, I've never hit a single Critical Strike. Usually it's either Diagonal Slash or Slicer, but it's honestly a preference which one you'd like to cast. And that's pretty much it. Warrior is basically as simple as that of an archetype. But the problem with this archetype, as mentioned before, is the absence of multiple affinity damage skills for the purpose of exploiting weaknesses. Yet, since magic damage is out of the question, and since most early game elemental damage are magic damage, the affinities that we should put into consideration are strike and pierce. Okay, hear me out. Look at Warrior's design. Warrior has a shield, so strike damage skills are on theme. Plus, swords can do a thrusting movement, so pierce damage skills are also on theme. Don't mind me just making some justification for the theme. Anyway, since strike skills are included, my recommendation for skill inheritance is one of Brawler's strike physical skills such as Perfect Punch or Skullcracker. However, my choice for this is mostly on Skullcracker since the damage is not dependent on how much HP you have and that it can inflict Forget. Complementing more on the strike physical damage department, Shield Arts from Knight is also a great choice for a strike physical damage skill, especially when it also decreases the enemy's hit/evasion, making battles much more convenient with higher chances of your party dodging enemies' attacks. Moving on to getting a pierce damage skill. Unfortunately, getting a pierce damage skill in the early game is actually harder than expected. The fastest and easiest way to get one of them is through Gunner with either Sleep Shot or Poison Shot. However, one problem of this is that it requires being in the back row to cast. While it is not quite of a problem gameplay-wise, it is unfortunately not in line with the theming of Warrior, being a frontline attacker, so I don't want to include this into the build. Despite being a pierce attacking archetype, the Knight won't learn a pierce damage skill until its Adept archetype, the Magic Knight, with Heavy Rush. Brawler's Adept archetype, the Pugilist, also has a pierce damage skill called Power Thrust, which is also great, especially since it also decreases an enemy's defense. So, in a case where you still use Warrior as a basic archetype, but already unlocked either Magic Knight or Pugilist, you can consider either Heavy Rush or Power Thrust to inherit. Going for passive skills to inherit, remember that critical strike skill that won't hit the enemy unless it is a critical? Well, you could slap in Diligent Disciple from Brawler to get more hits in with critical strike. You know, actually, thinking about it, I'm not sure that that's how it works. I'm not sure if increasing critical hit rate actually corresponds to increasing the hit rate of critical strike, but in theory, it should work like that. But nevertheless, increasing critical hit rate for a physical damage dealer is always a viable pick purely on how strong critical hits are in this game. Because critical hits acts as if you're exploiting weaknesses, and it works even for enemies that resist the affinity. And this works outside of using critical strike. So putting Diligent Disciple is a viable pick for skill inheritance. And piggybacking on the critical thing, Gold Attack is also a viable pick, albeit a more meme pick for skill inheritance. This is an almighty damage skill, yet it is a physical damage skill instead of magic, making it scale on strength and have the ability to crit. This skill has a naturally high chance to crit as well, making this skill both a great way to deal damage, but also to manipulate turn icons, since critical hits only consume half a turn icon. And that is a powerful tool to have in a press turn combat system like Metaphor ReFantazio. It's such a meme pick though, because it consumes money instead of MB, and spamming that skill while not equipping Merchant itself can result in a net loss of money, so you have to be mindful of using this skill. It is a fun mechanic to use though, and it's still on theme with Warrior's physical damage focus, so I could recommend Gold Attack for Warrior. Warrior's synthesis skills are as straightforward as its basic skill. Everything is slash damage, which I guess is kinda the cute part of Warrior in a way. So, Warrior's synthesis skills are Round Slash, Bamboo Splitter, and Peerless Stone Cleaver. All of these were great at their job. They deal huge amount of damage, both for multi-target and single target. Round Slash is an amazing synthesis skill to compensate for the lack of multi-target damage skill from Warrior's base kit, and Bamboo Splitter and Peerless Stone Cleaver is a great single target nuke that can refund a skill point if the skill kills the enemy, resulting in more actions for your turn. One point of argument that I can see though is that Peerless Stone Cleaver, while it deals the most damage out of the bunch against a single target enemy, it requires quite a lot of resources to cast. Party member combinations, 3 turn icons, and the 22 MP cost for those 3 party members doesn't seem worth it for a more damaging version of Bamboo Splitter, especially when Bamboo Splitter exists with less resource requirements. I don't really see the practical application of this, especially when it requires 3 of your party members to be all warriors. It ends up being a huge meme of a party. I guess it can be fun to do that though. Running 3 warriors in the early game is not as bad as running 3 seekers. So yeah, I guess this can be a fun way to play the game. So to get Peerless Stone Cleaver, pair a warrior with either a warrior, a thief, or mass dancer for the first combination, and with either a warrior, a brawler, or a berserker for the second combination. But it is better to run all warriors instead, because all 3 warriors can alternate in casting Peerless Stonecleaver. For a normal case scenario, when you don't want to use 3 warriors, Round Slash and Bamboo Splitter are great synthesis skills to have. To get Round Slash, pair your warrior with either a knight, a healer, or a commander. To get Bamboo Splitter, pair your warrior with another warrior, a brawler, or a berserker. So to get both of them, get one other party member into a knight or a healer, and another one party member into a warrior or a brawler. A healer and a brawler combination is great for that one light damage synthesis skill that brawler has, but in another light, a combination of knight and brawler is also a great party member combination to use because of the synthesis skill that the knight will gain. Jumping onto the Adept archetype of this lineage, we have the Swordmaster. The Swordmaster is pretty much the same yet upgraded version of Warrior, a slash-only frontline physical damage dealer. On learning the archetype, Swordmaster has Round Slash, the same multi-target slash damage skill from Warrior's synthesis skill but in a basic skill form. So no more of those 2-turn icons cost and the party member combination requirement. Upon leveling it up, Swordmaster learns Slash Dodge, Rising Slash, Raging Edge, and Martial Lore. It may be quite apparent by now that the difference here is that whereas the warrior has all single target slash damage skills, Swordmaster has all multi-target slash damage skills. As a result, Swordmaster suffers for not having a single target damage skill for a single target boss battle situation. Although, one could argue that the melee button is the single target slash damage skill with the addition of Martial Lore, which heavily increases the basic melee attack damage and in turn no MP costs because of it being a basic attack. So MP conservation is not an issue for the purpose of single target attacks. But I think you'll suffer some damage loss for using basic melee attacks instead of a skill because the difference in damage is really noticeable, especially when you can compare it with Raging Edge, which is one of the highest scaling slash damage, at least for that stage in the game. So that's one of the problems Swordmaster has, that Swordmaster does not have a good option for single target nukes, at least as a basic skill. And the other problem connected to this is that MP conservation is really miserable when all the skills Swordmaster has are costly because they are multi-target. So how do we lift this problem for Swordmaster? Simply put, inheriting a single target physical damage skill is a viable recommendation. It doesn't have to be slash as well, so any single target physical damage skill works in this context. Sorting by slash damage first, okay, this is rough because there's not a lot of single target slash damage skill at this stage of the game. The only worthy candidate for this is probably Elusive Dream from Assassin, as it is the only single target slash damage skill that holds up to this level. And because the other candidate is either Dark Sword from Thief or Slicer from Warrior itself, I have to pick Elusive Dream because it is straight up the better skill. For pierce damage, citing from the previous recommendations, Heavy Rush or Power Thrust still holds up to this stage of the game. So these are worthy picks for pierce damage, not including Gunner skills again because of the thematic dissonance of requiring you to be in the back row. It doesn't fit with Warrior's whole lineage theme. For strike damage, because you probably won't unlock Berserker yet at this point of the game, Crushing Fists from Pugilist is apparently the only candidate for a strike damage skill. Although you can still inherit shield arts like in the case of Warrior for its additional hit/evasion decrease for the cost of damage. It's a pick your poison kind of situation. By this stage of the game, you will probably unlock more physical skills that have elemental affinities. It's a unique trait of Metaphor ReFantazio that Atlus is trying to experiment on making strength-based characters not locked with only physical affinities, to expand on the weakness exploit mechanic that they probably have for their games. So, which skills are included in this category that are candidates for inheritance? These skills are Fiery Strike from Commander, Icy Strike from General, and Lurking Blade and Assassinate from Assassin. I personally like Fiery Strike and Icy Strike for the purpose of weakness exploit, while Lurking Blade for debuffing hit/evasion on the enemy. Assassinate though is the highest damaging skill of all the choices of single target physical damage because of its ability to instantly KO the enemy within a certain chance. Picking other skills than choices of single target physical damage skill, the only choice that caught my eye is to inherit Slash Boost from Warrior that did not naturally transfer to Swordmaster. A straight damage boost is always great, especially when Swordmaster already has all slash damage skills to begin with. The only downside is probably that it doesn't boost any other affinity skills that you might have chosen to inherit, but nevertheless, naturally boosting your major damage type without conditions is always a great strategy pick. Now, jumping to Swordmaster's synthesis skills, I kinda lied when I say that Swordmaster don't have any single target slash skill, because it is there in the form of synthesis skills. Phantom Sword Swarm, Bamboo Splitter, and Peerless Stonecleaver are all single target slash physical skills that restores turn icon on kill. Two of these are direct transfer from Warrior, so I guess it's safe to skip this and just talk about Phantom Sword Swarm. Phantom Sword Swarm is straight up the better version of Bamboo Splitter purely because of the damage that it can deal on the maximum 6 hits. Even on the minimum 4 hits, it still deals more damage than Bamboo Splitter, although just a tiny bit of damage difference. So to get Phantom Sword Swarm, pair your Swordmaster with either a Brawler, a Merchant, or a Summoner. The other synthesis skill, Vorpal Blade, is also a multi-target slash damage skill, which feels like it doesn't have a place in here because it's another damage upgrade for the cost of being a synthesis skill. However, this is actually a great skill to consider because it apparently also decreases all enemies' attacks, making it not just a high damaging skill, but also a good utility for survivability. To get Vorpal Blade, pair your Swordmaster with either a Gunner, a Vicar, or a Summoner. A Gunner, Merchant, and a Swordmaster combination can also give Gunner Mania Bullet, which can inflict a one-time physical weakness to an enemy, which can be comboed with Swordmaster, making Swordmaster's slash damage much higher against that enemy, and consumes only half turn icon because of the weakness exploit. Lastly, we have Samurai, the elite archetype of the warrior lineage. The Samurai is advertised as the archetype that gains more capabilities in their skills to have more than just slash damage skills. Whereas the warrior only has single target slash damage skills, Swordmaster has multi-target slash damage skills, Samurai gains an electric damage skill and two highly powered self-buffing skills that boost the power of Samurai's attacks, as well as passive skills that boost Samurai's sturdiness and an automatic attack buff at the start of the battle. On learning the Samurai, Samurai has Giant Slice as its starting skill. Leveling Samurai up will earn you Thunderblade, Attack Lore, Concentrate, Unwavering Blade, Regenerate 3, and Sturdy Stance. All in all, a very solid damage dealer archetype to work with. You know, thinking about it, there's no real weakness to Samurai as an archetype. Probably one could argue that Samurai's skills are too selfish, that it only buffs itself. Other than that is probably that Unwavering Blade is too contradictory to Sturdy Stance, whereas the evasion part of Unwavering Blade is rendered useless because Sturdy Stance makes Samurai unable to dodge, but is balanced by only receiving half damage at any instances. So how do we solve some of these issues? While we can't really do anything about the contradiction of Unwavering Blade and Sturdy Stance, we can elevate Samurai's selfishness by putting in buff skills for all party members. If you've watched my previous video on Seeker, you'd probably know what is coming. That's right, Formation of Figure and Shelter Formation is making a comeback. Yeah, these buffing skills from Commander and General are that good. For the cost of 35 MP, these buffing skills are equivalent to 8 Tarukajas or Rakukajas that only require one turn icon to cast. Naturally, as an archetype that was expanded to have buffing skills into their kit, Formation of Figure is a must-pick skill for Samurai for further damage boost, and Shelter Formation for more durability on top of Sturdy Stance. Other than that, Charge from Berserker is also a great skill to amplify Samurai's physical damage. It is also on theme in correlation with Concentrate that Samurai is an archetype that buffs itself to ultimately deal a huge amount of damage on the enemy. By the way, don't be confused with the naming scheme here, because Concentrate in Metaphor is different from Concentrate in Persona. Charge in Persona is the same as Charge in Metaphor, but Concentrate in Persona is Hyper in Metaphor. Concentrate in Metaphor did a different kind of buff that was in line with Concentrate in Persona, but different. For the next skill recommendation to be inherited, remember that Samurai's damaging skills are 1 single target slash damage and 1 multi-target electric damage. With this orientation, not having more variety for both single target and multi-target can hinder your performance. So imagine this case scenario. You encountered a group of 5 enemies, yet unfortunately these enemies are resistant or even blocks electric damage. Or vice versa, you encountered a mini-boss that is resistant or blocks slash damage. It's either you waste turns and potentially waste MP to cast Giant Slice on 5 enemies, or waste MP to cast Thunderblade on a single enemy. It's not the best case scenario, but very possible to happen. So to elevate this, let's take Raging Edge from Swordmaster to gain the multi-target slash damage for this case. For the single target case, you can refer to the choice of single target physical skills that are chosen for Swordmaster. But to fit on the theme of electric damage on Samurai, both Thunderstrike Thrust from Dark Knight and Stormbreaker Axe from Destroyer are great candidates for this slot. They deal the same amount of damage, so pick your poison on which additional effects that you like most. I personally like Thunderstrike Thrust better because of the defense debuff to let you deal more damage to the enemy. I think that's about enough active skills that can be slotted to Samurai. However, I do have some passive skills that caught my eye that fits pretty well with Warrior's playstyle. So, Samurai and the whole warrior lineage is still a frontline attacker because of them dealing physical damage only. With that theming going on, passive skills such as front boost from Warlord and short range boost from Destroyer are viable passive skills to have since they amplify Samurai's damage. On a party with multiple front row physical damage dealers, definitely put on front boost because it gives more value of physical attack buff for the party members that are in the front lines. One last passive skill that I want to bring up is kind of a stretch, but because Samurai have Regenerate 3, I'm thinking Revitalize 3 from Paladin is also a nice pick for MP economy. Regenerate 3 was there in Samurai for the purpose of Samurai being a durable archetype, but having that means it unlocks Samurai into an archetype that regains resources every turn, so it makes Revitalize 3 a cool pick to also complement Regenerate 3. Samurai is a very MP hungry archetype as well, with the amount of costly skills in its arsenal, so the more reason to invest on Revitalize 3 to conserve your MP. Lastly, for Samurai's synthesis skills, Peerless Stonecleaver and Phantom Swordswarm makes a return, but with 2 turn icon requirements on both, making Peerless Stonecleaver the better synthesis skill to cast for the purpose of single target nuke that refunds a turn icon on kill. Phantom Swordswarm is still good though. It serves as the lower MP cost alternative of Peerless Stonecleaver. To get Phantom Swordswarm, pair your Samurai with either a Brawler, a Merchant, or a Summoner. And to get Peerless Stonecleaver, pair your Samurai with either another Warrior, a Thief, or a Masked Dancer. The rest of the synthesis skills that samurai have are for multi-target purposes. Wind Blade is the multi-target wind physical damage skill for the purpose of wind weakness exploitation or just a group clear to enemies that didn't resist wind, while the other one, Crimson Moon Sword Art, is possibly the highest scaling multi-target slash physical damage in the game. Oh yeah, plus it can inflict charm in case the enemy lives, and charm is actually a very powerful ailment to inflict because it can make your enemy help you in battle instead of rendering them to do nothing. All of these are very much worth it for how much damage it can deal with the 2 turn icon costs. So to get Windblade, pair your samurai with either a seeker, a knight, or a commander, and to get Crimson Moon Sword Art, pair your samurai with either another warrior, a brawler, or a berserker. Normally, having Beryl Stone Cleaver and Crimson Moon Sword Art ready is probably enough, so having another warrior beside your samurai is enough to activate them. But on another case, having a knight, a masked dancer, and a berserker combination is also a good pick, since knight will have an electric base synthesis skill that would help samurai deal damage using their electric damage skills, and masked dancer can also help by amplifying the party's physical attack damage. And that's it. That is my rendition of the warrior archetype from Metaphor ReFantazio. All in all, the warrior lineage is a fun archetype to build purely on how thematic this archetype is. A huge frontline physical damage archetype with some capabilities of buffing their damage further. Again, if you have any differing builds on the warrior, definitely share them in the comments below if you feel like sharing them. And with that, as always, thanks for watching.